The spark that should never have been the Galactic Council chamber was never silent. It was a place of constant voices, deep rumbles, high-pitched tones, clicks, and growls. But today, the noise had a sharp edge. At the center table, the Krell Dominion's delegation stood with smug expressions. Their leader, High Speaker Dravik, was a tall, scaled alien with eyes like polished stone. He leaned forward and pointed one clawed finger at the human ambassador. "You think your little planet matters?" Dravik's voice cut through the hall. "You are dust. Weak, a mistake in the flow of evolution. And now, you will pay for challenging the Krell." Some aliens laughed. Others shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the Krell were dangerous. They had crushed empires for smaller insults. But no one expected what came next. Ambassador Elias Vance didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam his hand on the table. He simply stared back at Dravik with calm, steady eyes. "You have just made a mistake you can't undo," he said. Hall froze. Even the ever-chattering Yllari delegates fell silent. Vance stood, collected his datapad, and left the chamber without another word. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the vast room. For a moment, even Dravik seemed unsure. Then, he laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that carried across the chamber. "Humans," he sneered, "all bark, no bite." When Vance stepped into the private shuttle bay, he tapped a small device on his wrist. It lit up red for only a second. That was all it took. Across Earth's colonies, across outposts in the asteroid belts, and hidden bases in the dark edges of space, coded orders flashed into existence. Old war protocols classified for centuries came alive. Ships powered up. Defense networks shifted to attack formations. Silent fleets that had been shadows for generations began to move. Somewhere in the Kuiper Belt, a ship older than the current council itself awoke from hibernation. Its hull was black as midnight, its weapons hidden until now. Lights flickered. Unlike the eyes of a predator. On the Krell homeworld, Dravik received news that a human scout ship had been intercepted in disputed space. He laughed again. In his mind, this was a warning to Earth, one they would never forget. What he didn't know was that the crew of that scout ship had already sent the message before they were taken. And humanity had heard it loud and clear. In a spaceport bar on the neutral world of Zorath Prime, alien traders whispered in low tones. "Did you hear?" One said, his four eyes darting to the corners of the room. "What?" Another replied. "The humans are moving ships. Not just patrols, warships. Old ones, black ones. The kind no one's seen since the siege of Vega." The second trader laughed nervously. "It's probably nothing. Humans don't start wars." The first one didn't smile. "They don't. But they finish them." Back on Earth, deep inside, the Defense Command bunker beneath the Andes Mountains, Admiral Ria Solari stood in front of a massive holographic display. Red markers representing Krell assets blinked across the map. Blue markers human fleets were already on the move. "They think we're bluffing," she said quietly. "Then we'll make sure they know we're not," replied her second dash in dash command. She gave the order. Human stealth fleets began their first strikes, not with open fire, but with surgical precision. One by one, Krell border listening posts went. Dark, their communications cut. No explosions. No alarms. Just silence. 3 days later, Dravik slammed his fist on his private table as his aides reported the losses. "Accidents. All of them," one aide shouted. "Cosmic storms, asteroid strikes." "Lies," Dravik snarled. "This is humans." "But how? No one moves this fast." He didn't know that every Krell border station had already been mapped, their weak points cataloged, decades ago. Humanity had been patient, watching, preparing for the day the Krell overstepped. That day had come, somewhere far from any star. Hidden inside a cloaked command ship, Admiral Solari listened to intercepted Krell transmissions. She allowed herself the faintest smile. "They think it's bad now," she said, "but this is just the beginning." Outside her viewport, the black void shifted as dozens of massive human warships slid out of stealth, their hulls reflecting no light. Their engines burned cold, invisible to normal scans. They waited in silence, like wolves in the snow watching, calculating. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but a line had been crossed. And when humanity's line is crossed, history always changes. First retaliation, the Krell Dominion believed themselves untouchable. For centuries, they had bullied smaller civilizations into submission. They had crushed fleets, toppled governments, and burned entire colonies. But they had never fought humanity in a real war. Not yet. That changed the moment the Krell began to lose their outposts. It started small. A listening post on the edge of Krell space went offline. The Krell commander in charge sent a repair team. None returned. A mining station vanished from communications. Its last recorded log showed a shadow passing across its sensor grid. Too fast to identify. At first, the Krell blamed technical failures. Systems break, they told themselves. Accidents happen. But then, the pattern grew. In less than a week, 12 Krell border stations had gone dark. Supply ships failed to arrive. Patrol routes returned empty. No wreckage, no bodies, just silence. Far from the Krell homeworld, deep in a starless region known as the Black Corridor, humanity's stealth fleet waited. Commanded by Admiral Ria Solari, these ships were old legends, veterans of battles most of the galaxy had forgotten. Each ship was coated in advanced stealth plating, absorbing scans and bending light. They didn't roar into battle. They appeared, struck, and disappeared again before the enemy knew what had happened. Inside the flagship Resolute, Solari studied the tactical map. "Our next target?" asked Captain Oren, her second in command. "A Krell forward resupply hub. High security. Heavily guarded," she said, eyes cold. "We'll take it without firing a shot." "How?" Oren asked. "We make them blind," Solari replied. Hours later, a squadron of human corvettes drifted into position. Their engines ran cold. Their movement was like shadows sliding between stars. They slipped past Krell defense grids, masked by false sensor reading signals mimicking harmless space debris. Once in range, the corvettes launched small, dart-like drones. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were data predators engineered to infiltrate enemy systems. They latched onto the Krell hub's communication relays, injecting loops of false data. Within minutes, the entire Krell base believed it was safe, its own sensors showing nothing but empty space. In reality, 3 human destroyers were now docked directly against the station's hull, cutting through with silent plasma torches. Inside the Krell hub, alarms finally sounded, but it was too late. Human Marines swept through the corridors, moving with precision. No shots fired unless necessary. They took control of the command center in under 10 minutes. One Krell officer tried to sound the distress alarm. A human soldier stepped forward and simply said, "Don't." The Krell froze, his eyes darting to the glowing patch on the soldier's armor, the emblem of the old Earth fleet, an insignia alien warlords had hoped never to see again. The next morning, the galaxy's communication networks lit up with a rumor. The humans took an entire Krell military base without killing a single civilian. Some were impressed. Others were afraid. And the Krell? The Krell were humiliated. On the Krell capital world of Dravaris, High Speaker Dravik slammed his clawed fist on the war table. "This is an insult. They think they can humiliate us without consequence." He roared. His war ministers whispered nervously. "Our fleets are ready. Shall we strike their colonies?" Dravik's eyes narrowed. "No," he growled. "We will crush their homeworld. Earth will learn fear. He did not know that his words were already being recorded, beamed back to the Resolute through a hidden spy satellite dot in the Resolute's war room. Solari watched the intercepted transmission. "They're going for Earth," Captain Oren said. "They think we'll wait for them to come," Solari replied. "They're wrong." She pointed at the holographic star map. "By the time their fleet reaches our borders, we'll be in their heartland." That night, in a shadowed corner of Zorith Prime's busiest trade station, two alien smugglers talked over cheap drinks. "You hear the humans hit another Krell base?" "I heard they took it without a fight." "That's the scary part," the first said, leaning closer. "They're not just fighting. They're planning something big." "What?" The first smuggler glanced around and whispered, "There. Moving everything." A week later, the Krell military detected strange activity near one of their largest shipyards. Patrol ships were dispatched. They found nothing, just cold space dot as they turned to leave. A shadow eclipsed their view of the stars dot. It wasn't an asteroid. It was a human battleship, 3 times the size of any Krell vessel. Its hull black, its weapons glowing faintly like the eyes of a predator. The Krell patrol captain managed to send one desperate message before his ship vanished in a flash of light. "Black ships, they see us." The first retaliation was complete. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but this was only the opening move. Humanity had just stepped onto the warpath, and when humanity walked that road, they never walked it alone. The silent storm, the Krell Dominion, was angrier than they had been in 100 years. Their outposts were gone. Their supply lines were broken. Their patrols returned in pieces, if they returned at all. High Speaker Dravik decided it was time to end this human problem, once and for all. In the Krell war room, a massive hologram displayed their plan. A fleet of 200 warships would fly straight into human space. The goal was simple: show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and crush any resistance. "This will be swift," Dravik told his admirals. "We will burn their pride before we burn their worlds." The admirals bowed, but in their eyes there was doubt. The humans had already done the impossible twice, silently taking out entire Krell installations without a single large battle. But orders were orders. 3 weeks later, the Krell fleet crossed into human territory. At first, they saw nothing. No patrol ships, no satellites. Just empty, cold space. It felt wrong. Where are their defenses? One Krell officer asked. "Perhaps they've run," his captain said, grinning. "They know they can't face us head on." The fleet moved deeper into human space, past asteroid belts, past dark moons. Still nothing. Then the sensors started glitching. A young Krell technician frowned at his console. "Sir, I'm detecting energy spikes all around us." "From where?" the captain demanded. The answer came before the technician could speak. One by one, massive shapes appeared in the void, silent, black-armored warships decloaking around the Krell fleet. They didn't roar into view. They simply appeared, like shadows peeling away from darkness. The largest of them all loomed directly ahead, a behemoth bristling with railguns, missile bays, and plasma lances. Its hull bore a name in bold white. Letters, EHS Resolute. A voice came over the Krell fleet's comms. Calm, cold, human. "You wanted to see us?" the voice said. "Here we are." It was Admiral Rhea Solari. The Krell fleet scrambled to form attack formations. But before they could fire a single shot, every Krell targeting system went dead. Their screens showed only static. Their comms fell silent except for Solari's voice. "This is not a battle you can win," she said. "But you wanted war, you will have it." Then the storm began. Human warships struck with terrifying precision. Railguns fired, their projectiles moving faster than the Krell could track. Shields collapsed in seconds. Plasma beams sliced through armor like paper. Krell destroyers tried to retreat, but human corvettes small can impossibly fast-cut them. Off, hammering their engines before vanishing again into the black. The battle lasted only 6 minutes. When it was over, not a single Krell ship remained combat-ready. Those that weren't destroyed were dead in space, drifting with systems offline. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Oren looked at the silent wrecks. "They'll never forget this," he said. "They'd better not," Solari replied. Next. Time we won't leave survivors. Word of the battle spread faster than light. On trade stations across the galaxy, alien merchants whispered about the Black Armada that had appeared from nowhere. On neutral worlds, politicians quietly began sending messages to Earth, seeking new trade and defense agreements. And on the Krell capital, Dravik raged, smashing his claws into his throne, until his advisors kept their distance. In a smoky bar. On Zorth Prime, 2 alien mercenaries spoke in hushed tones. "You see the reports?" one asked. "Every one of them," the other replied. 200 Krell ships. Gone. "That's not war," the first said. "That's a warning." But the Krell didn't see it that way. Their pride had been wounded in front of the entire galaxy, and pride was more dangerous than fear. In secret, Dravik began planning something reckless, a strike, so cruel it would force the humans to their knees. He didn't care what it cost. Back on Earth, Solari stood before the United Earth Council. "They will come again," she said, "but they will not make the same mistake twice. Next time, they'll target our people, our families." The council chamber was silent. "What do you recommend?" asked the Prime Minister. Solari's eyes hardened. "We take the fight to their heart before they touch ours." In the darkness of space, humanity's fleets began to move again, faster this time, angrier this time. A silent storm had passed. Hurricane was coming. The enemy's desperation High Speaker Dravik sat in his private war chamber, claws tapping on the table. His last fleet had been destroyed in minutes. The galaxy was laughing at the Krell Dominion. Humiliation burned hotter than any star. "They think they've won," Dravik growled. "They think they can make a fool of us." One of his war ministers shifted nervously. "High Speaker, we must consider negotiations. The humans have enough." Dravik's voice was sharp. "We will strike them where it hurts most, not their fleets, not their armies, their people." The plan was brutal. A Krell assault group would bypass human war patrols using old smuggler routes and hit a colony world on the outer rim Haven Reach. It was a peaceful settlement of scientists, farmers, and families. No major defenses. Perfect, Dravik thought. The attack came without warning. At dawn, the skies above Haven Reach split open with the arrival of 12 Krell warships. The colony's small defense patrol barely had time to launch before they were destroyed. Buildings burned. Sirens wailed. Children cried as their parents rushed them to underground shelters. Krell soldiers landed in the streets, hunting for the communications center to cut off any distress calls. They didn't know the distress beacon had already been sent, before their jammers even powered on. In deep space, aboard the Resolute, Admiral Rhea Solari received the alert. Her face went pale for a moment, not with fear, but with rage. "Haven Reach," she whispered. Captain Oren was already on his feet. "That's where the families of the 3rd Earth Guard live. The war." Room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. These weren't just civilians. They were the loved ones of humanity's most elite soldiers. "Ready the Black Spear teams," Solari ordered. "We're ending this before sunset." The counterstrike was surgical. 3 stealth frigates jumped into orbit over Haven Reach without warning. They dropped atmospheric pods carrying Black Spear operators, Earth's most feared special forces. The Krell soldiers in the streets heard nothing until it was too late. Shadows moved between buildings. Targets dropped one by one quietly, efficiently in less than 7 minutes. Every Krell landing team was gone above. The Krell warships tried to regroup, but they were trapped. The Resolute arrived flanked by 4 heavy cruisers. Instead of opening fire immediately, Solari transmitted a single message to the Krell flagship. You brought war to our families. Now we bring war to yours. The Krell captain tried to order an escape burn, but his engines were already dead disabled by precision railgun strikes from human destroyers hiding behind the planet's moon. Then the human fleet fired, not to destroy the Krell ships entirely, but to cripple them. Engines gone, weapons offline, life support intact. Was deliberate. The surviving Krell were taken as prisoners, living proof to the rest of the galaxy that humanity could strike with both fury and control. Hours later, Haven Reach stood safe again. Fires were out, wounded were treated, and families were reunited. But the damage was not forgotten. Solari stood in the colony square as a young boy ran up to her. His clothes were dusty, his eyes still wet from crying. He handed her a small wooden carving of a starship. My dad's in the 3rd Guard, the boy said softly. He told me humans always come back for their own. Solari knelt down, took the carving, and said, always. The next day, every news network in the galaxy broadcast the footage. Human special forces rescuing civilians, Krell soldiers in chains, and Admiral Solari's final warning. If you come for our people, there will be no place in the stars where you can hide. In the Krell capital, Dravik smashed the broadcast screen in rage. His ministers avoided his gaze. Deep down, they were beginning to fear not just the humans, but their own leader's arrogance. For the first time, whispers of revolt stirred in the halls of Krell power. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council called another emergency meeting. Delegates argued over what to do about the human problem. Some wanted to unite against Earth. Others wanted to ally with them before it was too late. In the middle of the chaos, one veteran council member said quietly, "They have the power to destroy us all, and the discipline not to." The room fell silent. Humanity had drawn another line in the stars, and everyone now knew crossing it was suicide. A council in panic, the Galactic Council Chamber, had seen its share of loud debates. But this was chaos. Delegates shouted over one another. Claws slammed on tables. Tentacles waved. Translators struggled to keep up. Half the room demanded action against humanity, calling them too dangerous to be allowed unchecked. The other half argued that Earth was the only power strong enough to keep the Krell from dominating the galaxy. At the head of the chamber, Council Speaker Varen banged his staff for silence. Order! Order! The noise only dropped slightly. The Krell delegation entered late. High Speaker Dravik walked with his usual arrogance, but there was something tight in his movements, anger, mixed with desperation. He took the floor. The humans are warmongers, Dravik declared. They attacked our fleets without provocation. They seized our stations. They humiliated us before all of you. If they are not stopped now, none of you will be safe. Some delegates nodded. Others looked away, remembering the Krell's own history of bullying weaker species. Then the chamber doors opened again. The human delegation entered, led by Admiral Rhea Solari herself. It was unusual for a military officer to represent Earth in the Council, but this was no normal meeting. She didn't speak immediately. She walked slowly to the center table, her boots clicking against the polished floor. In her hands was a small black cube. She placed it on the table. What is that? Dravik scoffed. Solari pressed a button. The cube projected holograms into the air-clear, undeniable images. The burning of Haven Reach. Krell soldiers dragging civilians from their homes. The bombing of unarmed settlements. Audio of Dravik giving the order, strike their people, Make them fear us? The chamber fell silent. Some delegates looked sick. Others stared at Dravik in open disgust. This, Solari said, her voice calm but cold, is why we acted. This is why your fleets were destroyed. And this is why the Krell Dominion will answer for its crimes. She tapped the cube again. New images appeared, this time of massive human fleets positioned near the home systems of every major council member. Not attacking, not threatening, just waiting. A Ralphie delegate, a longtime critic of humanity, leaned forward. You're telling us you could destroy any of us right now? I'm telling you, Solari replied evenly, that we could have, and we chose not to. Because unlike the Krell, we do not strike the innocent. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The balance was shifting. Old enemies of Earth began rethinking their positions. Even species who had feared humanity now wondered if aligning with them might be safer than opposing them. Dravik tried to speak. Lies! Fabrications! You, Solari, cut him off. Your own voice ordered the attack. Your own soldiers carried it out. And your own arrogance has left your empire on the brink of collapse. Council Speaker Varen turned to Dravik. High Speaker, do you deny these are your words? Dravik hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. You can't, Solari said quietly. The council chamber shifted again. This time, against the Krell. Delegates called for sanctions, for investigations, for stripping the Krell of their council seat. Dravik's claws tightened on the table. He glared at Solari, but she only met his stare with calm steel. When the meeting adjourned, whispers followed her through the halls. She embarrassed the Krell without firing a shot. She turned the whole council against them in one day. That's why you don't provoke humans. Outside the chamber, Captain Oren waited. You made enemies today, he said. I made allies too, Solari replied. The right kind. And the Krell? They're going to lash out, she said. Pride like that doesn't die quietly. In the dark corners of the Krell homeworld, Dravik was already making plans that would break every law of the council. He would strike again, and this time there would be no holding back. What he didn't know was that humanity was already 2 steps ahead. The next move belonged to Earth, the final, warning the Krell Dominion was collapsing. Weeks after the council meeting, their trade routes were cut, their fleets were scattered, and their allies had abandoned them. The galaxy had turned its back, but High Speaker Dravik refused to surrender Dot in the Krell War Council. His generals spoke nervously. Our fleets are crippled. Our borders are open. The humans are everywhere. Dravik slammed his claw on the table. We are Krell. We do not kneel to outsiders. In orbit above the Krell capital world, an unusual sight appeared, a single human warship. It was not cloaked. It did not hide. It hung in space like a dark blade. Its name burned across its hull. EHS Vindicator got inside. Admiral Rhea Solari stood on the bridge, flanked by 2 armed guards. She wore no armor, just a simple black uniform with the silver crest of the United. Earth Fleet, open the channel, she said. Moments later, Dravik's massive throne room display flickered to life, showing Solari's face. High Speaker, she said calmly. This is your final chance. You dare speak to me of chances? Dravik spat. You think I fear your ship? I could destroy you in seconds. Solari didn't flinch. Try it, and your capital will be gone before your sensors even register. The shot. She pressed a button on her wrist. Behind her, the view shifted to reveal dozens, no, hundreds of human warships emerging from stealth across the Krell system. Massive carriers, destroyers, and black-armored dreadnoughts. Each one had weapons locked on critical Krell targets, orbital stations, shipyards, defense platforms. This is not a bluff, Solari said. In 30 minutes, you will either sign the surrender treaty or you will have no empire left to rule. Dravik's generals shifted uneasily. One whispered, "We cannot win this, High Speaker." Dravik's eyes burned with rage, but for the first time, there was fear in them. The treaty terms were simple. All Krell military forces disbanded. Krell war industry dismantled. Immediate release of all prisoners and occupied worlds. Acknowledgement of human sovereignty. War reparations to all species the Krell had harmed. You expect us to crawl? Dravik snarled. No, Solari replied. I expect you to survive. Outside the Krell capital, the human fleet moved into attack positions. The Vindicator's forward guns glowed faintly, a warning that the countdown had begun. All over the galaxy, military channels lit up with reports. The humans have surrounded the Krell homeworld. They're giving them 30 minutes. 20 minutes in, Dravik still refused to answer. Then, from the corner of his throne room, an elderly Krell counselor stepped forward. His voice was quiet but firm. High Speaker, enough. If you do not sign, there will be no Krell left. Dravik's claws trembled. He knew it was true. With 10 minutes remaining, the treaty was signed. On the Vindicator's bridge, Solari received the confirmation. She said nothing for a long moment, then turned to her officers. Stand down, she ordered. Leave them their planet, but let them remember this day. As the human fleet withdrew, messages flooded across the galaxy. The war was over. The Krell Dominion was finished. Humanity had not only won, they had done so without wiping out their enemy, and that scared the galaxy more than anything else. Later, speaking before the United Earth Council, Solari delivered the message that would echo through history. We did not seek this war, but we will never again wait for permission to defend our people. Let the stars remember, Earth stands, and Earth endures. On the Krell capital, Dravik sat alone in his throne room. The walls felt smaller now, the galaxy colder. He had gambled against humanity and lost everything. In the shadows, the whispers grew louder. One mistake against humanity, and the galaxy was never the same. The lesson burned into history years past. The war between the Krell Dominion and humanity became a story told in classrooms, on spaceports, and in the back rooms of taverns across the galaxy. That it had a name. Now the mistake. Not the war of Krell aggression. Not the human defense campaign. Just the mistake. Because everyone knew. Provoking. Humanity was the single biggest mistake a civilization could make. In the great archives of the Galactic Council, a holorecord played on a loop for visitors. It showed the moment Admiral Rhea Solari placed the black cube on the council table, exposing the Krell's crimes. It showed the image of the Black Armada appearing silently around the Krell fleet. Children from dozens of species stared at it wide-eyed. Some were in awe, some were afraid. All of them understood the same truth. Humans are not to be underestimated, ever. On the neutral world of Zorath Prime, an old alien trader leaned over his table, speaking to a young apprentice. You want to know the secret to surviving in this galaxy? The old trader asked. Yes, master, the apprentice replied. The trader's 4 eyes narrowed. Never lie to a human. Never cheat a human. And never ever threaten their people. Because they remember. And when they come for you, they don't stop. The apprentice nodded slowly, the lesson settling in his mind like stone. On Earth, Haven Reach had been rebuilt better than ever. New buildings rose where the old ones had burned. Families walked in safety beneath the same sky that had once been darkened by Krell ships. In the colony square stood a statue Admiral Solari, hand outstretched, holding a small wooden carving of a starship. At her feet, the inscription read, Always. It was a promise. The Krell Dominion still existed, but not as the galaxy remembered it. Their fleets were gone, their empires shattered into small, defensive states. No longer conquerors they were. Now one voice among many in the council watched closely, always reminded of the day they bent the knee to humanity. Dravik was gone. His name was not spoken in public. History had painted him as the fool who doomed his people. On a quiet evening, Solari stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, now a museum ship orbiting Earth. The stars stretched endlessly before her. Cold and beautiful Dock Captain Oren, now retired, stood beside her. "You ever think about how it could have gone?" he asked. "All the time," she said. "If we'd waited, if we'd hesitated, Haven Reach would be ashes. The Krell would still be out there, hunting the weak." Oren nodded. "Instead, the galaxy learned." Solari smiled faintly. "Yes, they learned. Far away, in the lecture halls of alien academies, young officers studied the mistake as a mandatory course. They analyzed the battles, the diplomacy, the restraint humanity showed even when they could have taken everything. Their instructors would always end the lesson the same way. Power is dangerous, but power with discipline, that changes history. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, smugglers, mercenaries, and pirates shared another version of the story. In their telling, humanity was the shadow you never saw until it was too late. The silent hunter. The storm that came without warning. Some thought it was just a legend, exaggerated over the years. Others knew better. Back on Haven Reach, the boy, who had once given Solari the wooden starship, was now a young man, serving in the United Earth Fleet. On his first day, he looked at the emblem on his uniform and remembered her words. Always. He swore he would keep that promise, just like the generation before him. And so the war became more than just history. It became a warning, a legend, and a promise. One mistake against humanity, and the galaxy was never the same.